What is going on, everybody? AJ here, going to give you guys the breakdown for UFC ABC 2. Looking forward to that. If you did not see my tweet, I'm going to be joined by Peter, Notorious Picks, right after the Shore versus Azure fight. So super excited to get on and chop it up with him as well. Thank you guys so much for your patience. I had to take care of something that was urgent, so apologies for the delay. You guys know me. I'm usually not tardy. I try not to be, but this was just a rare circumstance. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. And yeah, before we get into the fights, I would like to, of course, promote PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy site in the industry with over 100 or up to 100% instant deposit bonus for up to $100 instant deposit bonus. And it is basically a game where you insert an entry, an over/under prop on a player's points, rebounds, assists. In the case of NBA, there's other sports as well. Use promo code AJ100 for that instant deposit bonus. Up to 100%. So again, there's no sharks, there's no fish. It's just you versus a projection. So PrizePicks is I'm high on it. I'm bullish on PrizePicks. So super excited for that. Also, RotoWire 10-day free premium trial. It's 10 days for free, guys. So if you try it, you don't like it, you could always, of course, move on to something else. You get access to all the different resources, data to become a great DFS player. That saves you a lot of time and stress. You don't have to follow along with injury news, things like that. You get just a no-nonsense approach to DFS. So also, you guys, if you didn't already know, I am now teaming up with Brett Apley. I am pleased to be working with his site, dailyfanmma.com, providing Bellator content for him, for his sites. Use promo code AJ255 for 25% off your first month of Bellator premium content. So now that that's out of the way, let's get into this UFC ABC 2 card. So first fight of the night, we have Impa Kasanganay taking on Sasha Platinikov. Impa is actually one of the biggest favorites on the card. Vettori is a bigger favorite than him. Him and Castro, depending on what book you look at, they're about the same. But yeah, I tend to agree with the odds. I don't want to bet Impa here. I think he's the better fighter. I think he's more defensively sound. I think he's more athletic. And I think he'll have a strength advantage here. He's just the more physically built guy is Impa. It's tough to tell exactly how he will respond after his loss to Buckley. Maybe it fires him up. Maybe it discourages him. I'm going to assume we're getting the best version of both guys. That's just how I assess fights. Platinikov is a solid striker. He's got good footwork, decent technique. And as we saw in that UFC debut, he's very tough and resilient. But he has been stopped via strikes more than once. He was almost knocked out in the UFC debut because his defense, specifically his head movement, could be much improved. I just think Impa, even though doesn't have any wins by TKO KO on his resume, he's not a huge power puncher, but I just think that the superior technique, athleticism, and defense should help him prevail and win rounds down the stretch. I lean a decision. I wouldn't be shocked again by an Impa finish, just because I am high on him in general. And I wouldn't be shocked to, I guess, see an even better version of him. He's a guy that's just very young in his career, so he's only going to get significantly better each and every time out, as is Platinikov. Impa is just a better talent in my eyes, and that's why I'm going to side with him as far as a prediction goes. The second matchup, Jung taking on William Knight. Jung's got a pretty sizable reach advantage here, about 5 inches or so. I do think he's the better striker on the feet. I think he's more technical. His striking is pretty predictable as Jung's. He mainly just throws the 1-2, the jab cross, and he certainly has power. I do favor him on the feet. Knight has power. Knight is aggressive. He's athletic. He's obviously very physically strong, but his striking defense specifically could be much improved. He's got a striking defense of 33% if you're a UFCstats.com nerd like I am. Others are as well. And it shows in the tape. His chin is high. Head movement could be much improved. He's just very raw as Knight. But again, like I said, with Impa and Platinikov, he's a guy that's young in his career, going to get only significantly better each and every time out. So there's reason to be optimistic that maybe he improves in the meantime. But still, I don't think that in this meantime, we just saw him a few months ago against Alexa Kamor, that he's better than Jung on the feet. I think Jung is a better striker, and that should help him win the aggregate of the striking exchanges. Where Knight needs to win this fight is in the clinch and try and take Jung down. And I think it's possible. Jung tends to back straight up into the fence. So if Knight just kind of comes at him, bull rushes him, he could certainly impose himself in the clinch with his, good technique. He does have, head positioning concepts, even though he did lose some clinch exchanges there to Alexa Kamor. Knight could take you down with outside trips. He could take you down with a level change, a lift, because he's just so strong. So he could take Jung down because we haven't really seen Jung's defensive wrestling really tested since that UFC debut against Ibragimov, where he didn't show the best defensive wrestling. And even on the regional scene, when you want to go back, you can take Jung down. Do I think he's improving there? Sure, but I still don't think he's a great defensive wrestler. So it's one of these weird fights where it's going to be kind of binary. I think on the feet, Jung is going to be winning those exchanges. I just think technique-wise, the reach, that should all help. And if Knight happens to get the clinch, gets in top position on Jung, I think that's where he could really dominate the fight. Knight, in addition to being so big and strong, he does have good technical Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu concepts. He looks to a pass guard in top position. He looks to sink in hooks that presented the back. And he's a very, aggressive, I guess, submission guy, if you could say that. Towards the end of round 2 against Camor, he had that very deep Kimura attempt that made the announcers just sort of react in sort of an abrupt way. So that's where the fight is going to be won or lost. It's can Knight take Jung down? And I think he can, again, because Jung was taken down a few times by Ibragimov there in that UFC debut. But the fight is won or lost standing. And I just don't trust, or the fight is going to be starting standing, I should say. And I just don't trust Knight's technical wrestling that much yet. Again, I think he's very strong, but the technical concepts are still coming along. So I want to be shocked if Knight wins, but as far as the prediction goes, I'm going to side with Jung to get his hand raised. Third fight, Luis Saldana and Jordan Griffin. I like Saldana here. I think he's the better striker in a fight that's going to be won or lost standing. He's got a striking background, does Saldana, and his striking looks beautiful. Punches look very crisp. He's got various kicks that he utilizes on the outside. His footwork is good. His range management isn't elite yet, but I think it's only going to get better. Again, another young guy. I know he's got around 20 pro fights in his professional mixed martial arts career, but he is one of these younger guys that I expect to get better and better each and every time out and better understand range management. And Jordan Griffin is a guy who, yeah, he could throw in combination and yeah, he's got some power in his hands, but I don't think he's nearly the technical striker as Saldana is. Jordan will kind of just run at you and spam a combo. We saw in his last fight against Yusuf Zalal, the cardio could be much improved. He was very tired there in round 2. So yeah, that's kind of the way I see the fight is just a fight won or lost standing. Cause again, we've seen in the past, Griffin definitely has his issues with defensive grappling. And in the stand-up battle, I just like Saldana. I just think he's more technical. He's got more variety with his attack, more diversity. That should help him win the aggregate of the striking exchanges. I lean that he gets it done with a decision just because Griffin has shown to be generally durable. He's only been knocked out once in a large sample size, and it was a doctor stoppage too. So he's definitely shown a pretty solid chin as Griffin. So I trust Saldana as far as the prediction goes, and he's going to be my pick. Jack Shore and Hunter Azure, as I mentioned off the top, this is going to be the last fight that we'll discuss before I bring in Notorious, which reminds me I'm going to send him the link. I had it in the DMs. I had forgotten to send it to him, but I'm going to send that to him right now. But with this matchup here, Shore and Azure, I do like Shore in the matchup. I just think that Azure's tendency of sort of, giving up the clinch often, giving up his back, like we saw against Brad Katona, like we saw against Cole Smith, is just, I don't think that's a great recipe for a guy like Jack Shore who loves that sort of game. He likes it when you give him his back. He's very good positionally as Shore. He utilizes the body lock for control. He's a very good submission grappler, a very good guard passer in top position. To me, it's just a matter of, is Azure too big of a step up? Is he too athletic for Shore? And it's one of those things we don't really know until we actually see them in there. There's, just like I say in the past, there's risk with every single bet that I make. I never act like every bet that I place is a lock. I always acknowledge probabilities because that's what it really comes down to, right? I don't act like I know everything. I don't act like my bet is just going to flawlessly cash from bell to bell. No. With this fight, it's just a matter of that. I just think that technically Shore has all the tools to win. Azure throws with power on the feet, but that is also part of the reason why he slows down as the fight progresses. We saw him slow down in round 3 against Cole Smith, and that's why Cole Smith was able to have so much success taking his back, threatening him with submission attempts in round 3, and winning round 3 on every single judge's scorecard, right? So Shore is not a dangerous striker in a matchup where he's facing like a really strong defensive wrestler. I'd have my hesitancies with Shore. Maybe this is the matchup where he struggles to land takedowns, but like I say, we've seen we've seen Azure, despite coming from a high pedigree wrestling background, we saw him taken down by Katona. We saw him taken down by Cole Smith just his last fight. I think that Shore, even if he gets the clinch position, could just kind of wrap Azure up, take the back, and maybe even threaten with submission. So I lean that Shore's control and submission ability is going to prevail here. It's just a matter of, is this too big of a step up? Is Azure too athletic for him? And I guess we'll find out exactly. But my pick to win is Jack Shore. And without further ado, I'm going to bring in Notorious, who is nice enough to join me. Notorious, what's up, man? How you doing today?
What's up, brother? I'm super excited to be here. Last time was super fun, so let's do it again.
Dude, yeah. When you gave me that, when you tweeted at me, I'm like, dude, hell yeah, like let's do it. I wasn't sure. I always say to people, like, if I'm, if we're cool and you always want to get on, just ask, and we'll try and make it happen. So I'm really excited to talk to you about this, and we'll just kick it over to the next fight. I'll let you kick us off here. Jorgen de Castro and Jarvis Danho. Do you have a lean here?
Yeah, I think. There's a few things that are kind of like red flaggy to me. Danho has been out for 5 years. Like, what even happened? Was he injured? And even before that, I think the guy was borderline cuttable. I think the guy. I don't really know what his game is. I think he just kind of throws wild strikes. Like, closes his eyes and just kind of tries to bum rush you with overhand rights and get in the clinch. And even from the clinch, he struggles to take guys down, like the UFC guys. But so I think the way he closes the distance is absolutely atrocious. And I think that Castro is pretty good at timing counters. He killed Tuffa exactly like that. And I wouldn't be surprised that we see that kind of finish here as well. I'm not really rushing to bet. What is Castro is at? Castro is at, let me see. He is minus 310. I guess if you guys want to play him, I would just maybe play the KO line instead. Or play him in round 1. I think that would actually be the bet that I would take personally, but I'm not betting this fight. I'm not really interested in it. And if it becomes a sloppy, low volume fest after round 1, if Castro doesn't, kill him, that wouldn't surprise me either. So I'm just staying away and gonna just enjoy the madness. What about you?
Yeah, you read it. I think you're reading it well. I don't want to bet to Castro at such a big line just because he's just one of these heavyweights. Like, yeah, he's athletic. Yeah, he hits really hard. But if he can't knock you out early, like, he tends to kind of fall apart, like we've seen twice already with Hardy and Tafa. And yeah, like, I'm not going out on a limb with saying he probably goes out here and knocks Danho out. We saw Danho hurt by Colombo. Like you said, his game is just not very functional. He seems to want to get you in the clinch so he can muscle you down. But, like, he's been largely unsuccessful taking people down in the UFC. Just one takedown against Colombo, and I just saw it this morning. He took Colombo down, couldn't really hold him, and I don't think De Castro's an elite defensive grappler, but he's a pretty solid one. He showcased good takedown defense in that Contender Series fight. So in a fight that's won or lost standing, and in a sport where activity is so important, you touched on it. Danho has not fought. George St. Pierre has fought more recently than Jarvis Danho. That blows my mind. Wow. And, it's just crazy, man. I was surprised, like you, to see him still in the UFC. I was surprised to see this matchup. And, I never could gauge exactly where the UFC's head's at when they do this matchmaking, but this just seems like a really good matchup for De Castro on paper to get right back on track. Last remark.
Yeah, one thing I want to add is if you look at topology, he has been scheduled against Greg Hardy and Tai Tuivasa, and both fights fell out. And that kind of tells me that they're trying to set up Greg and Tai with highlight finish here. I could be wrong, but like from what I've seen on footage and the way Guy approaches the game, I think both of those guys would have KO'd him. And maybe UFC is trying to get Castro on track here. So that's my pick here. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and next fight we've got John Magdeseev, and I'm just gonna try this last name. John Magdeseev, Ignacio Baha-Mendez. I'll just touch on it really briefly. Like, I generally agree with Baha-Mendez being a big favorite. He's so much younger than Magdeseev, and he's got a huge reach, and that typically wins fights like over the long haul. And he also comes from a kickboxing background, but I wasn't that impressed with his striking, to be honest, on his Contender Series fight. He got tagged up with like big overhand rights because he just doesn't move his head. Like, is Magdeseev the guy to really exploit his striking defense and beat him? I don't know. I think Magdeseev's more technical. He certainly is a very polished striker coming from his background, Taekwondo. I also have questions about Baha-Mendez defensive grappling, but I looked at Magdeseev's stats. He has not landed one takedown in his whole UFC career. So won or lost standing where, again, I favor Baha-Mendez, but like, no way do I want to bet him here. The guy's got holes in his game. So do you see this fight kind of similarly? Do you like a play here?
I started off as actually, I thought maybe I would have a play on Magdeseev just looking at the lines before I even taped it. And then when I started looking at the tape, I just don't like the way Magdeseev is looking these days. I think he's very gun shy. I mean, he didn't really want to engage with Trinaldo. I mean, I get it. Trinaldo is very powerful, you know, and you might not want to engage with Trinaldo that much, but like, I don't understand, like, how is he going to win these fights in 2021, you know? But one thing I would say is that the experience edge is, you know, tremendous here. And Ignacio coming off, you know, highlight reel finish on Contender Series, that's kind of like one thing that I try not to bet to the next fight, because when a guy has like such an amazing performance last time out, I mean, the chances of it happening again, you know, to me, they're a little bit lower than what the price usually is. So I do lean Ignacio. I think he's coming down from welterweight, right? So I think he's going to be the bigger guy. He has the reach advantage. I mean, he's going to throw more. And, you know, Magdeseev, you know, might just not want to engage as much as he should. But Magdeseev has good counters. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he, you know, lands some damage if Ignacio gets overzealous. One thing that I do like about Ignacio is that his step back counters, but Magdeseev is a counter striker, so I don't think that's going to be there. So I think Magdeseev is going to be the one waiting for counters, and it could become sort of a low volume type of fight after round one. Ignacio does slow down after round one. So I'll still pick him to win, but I'm not really interested in betting him. I was initially potentially interested in a KO, but I think it's plus 200, plus 230 is not good enough for me because Magdeseev is a tough guy. So if it was like plus 400, I would have taken a shot, but at plus 230, it's not enough for me. That's
fair. 100%, man. And speaking of performances where you could say are a bit overrated, perfect segue going into the next fight is Norma Dumont and Aaron Blanchfield. I saw, I don't know if you have a play here, but I saw you make mention of this fight on Twitter. What are your kind of thoughts on this one?
Okay, well, I've known about Aaron Blanchfield for a while. When I was taping Kay Hansen before she came into UFC, she actually fought Aaron Blanchfield, right? So, and I've heard that Aaron Blanchfield is, you know, pretty highly touted prospect. And I do actually, after doing more analysis on her, I think she will be a very good flyweight. The problem here is that there might be such a big physicality edge on Dumont's side. And I think that's one thing I don't like to fade is when someone has such a big physicality edge. Because Dumont, she borderline a featherweight, right? She missed weight in her bantamweight fight against Ashley Evans-Smith, right? She came in, I think it was 139. And, I mean, Blanchfield, she's only 21. She's still growing in her body. I think technically speaking, I think her grappling and, you know, her wrestling, I think is better than Dumont. But if she can't take her down because of the physicality edge, then it becomes a striking fight. And Dumont, I think she lands pretty hard strikes. And the other thing that I don't like about Aaron Blanchfield is the way she enters the range with low kicks without setting them up, and she can be easily countered. And she's been countered by smaller girls. And, I mean, she doesn't really get hurt by them. But Dumont, if she lands like a counter right, I mean, that could be trouble. However, if we go past the first round, I think Aaron Blanchfield has the advantage in cardio and volume and pace. So maybe she could take over down the stretch. But pre-bet, I mean, plus 200 is enticing, though. I'm not going to lie. It's just the physicality edge, man. I can't pull the trigger. I need to see the weigh-ins. Maybe the size difference won't be as big, and then it will make me want to bet it. But for now, I'm just passing. What are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, like I see why a lot of people are high on Blanchfield. I just, like you said, though, she's just very young and still green. I mean, like, if she loses this fight, it doesn't, like, whenever prospects lose their early fights, to me at least, I'm like, oh, the hype is gone. No. I don't write them off just because they lose. Like, it just, she might be ready for this test. She might not. But regardless, I think she's got a bright future. She's a very good grappler, as you said. But Dumont will have a big physicality edge, which you also touched on. And that's ultimately why I think Blanchfield's game is going to be largely neutralized here. The size, and then Dumont's also a BJJ brown belt herself. I don't think she's like an elite submission grappler, but she's definitely very capable. She's a proficient scrambler, is Dumont's. Her wrestling isn't great, but I don't think Blanchfield has elite wrestling either. And on the feet, I got to favor Dumont. Like you said, I mean, we might be saying like, yeah, maybe her fight against Evan Smith might be a bit inflating her line, but her striking still looked really good there. It was better than any striking performance I saw Blanchfield, to put it bluntly. Her hands looked very fast. They looked technical. She was throwing good combos. Her defense was sharp. So I think Blanchfield is she's definitely very tough. I don't think like, there's definitely a chance that like even a lost scenario, she could still have a good showing, but I got to side with Dumont here. And she's also, not taking this fight on short notice, which Blanchfield is. So I'm excited for the future of Blanchfield regardless of the result of this fight. And we'll see exactly how it shakes out.
Yeah. One thing I want to add to this is Dumont, I've seen questionable energy use from her in the past, and she does slow down. Not in the Ashley Evans Smith fight, but I think Ashley Evans Smith was actually injured in that fight because the broadcasting team was even talking about how she mentioned it to them during the week. And you could see in the first round, I think she got hit to the body, and she had a really bad reaction to it. And I think maybe her ribs were hurt before, and then she got hit there again, and she really didn't want to be there afterwards. But in the past fights, I've seen Dumont slow down a little bit after round one. And if Erin Blanchfield is still there after round one and the lifeline is like plus 400 or something like that because she lost the first round, I would take the shot personally. So that's just my view on that.
Yeah, fair enough. Next fight, Scott Holtzman and Mateusz Gamrot. Gamrot, pretty surprisingly to me, a massive favorite. I mean, like, yeah, as far as the prediction goes, I'm siding with him, but like, I don't want to bet him at this line just because he's not the most dangerous finisher and he's not the most high output striker. Like, I think he's technical, but I don't think he's a great wrestler. He was shooting from very far out against Garam. He was even struggling to get takedowns on the regional scene. And Scott Holtzman, he doesn't come from an elite wrestling background, but he's a pretty solid MMA wrestler. He definitely could scramble well. He can give you resistance against the fence. Like we saw against Dariush, he'll spread a wide base. He'll look for underhooks. He's got good instincts, things like that. So I think we're going to get this fight that's won or lost standing, even though, they're both good submission grapplers. Holtzman, a BJJ brown belt, and Gamrot is very credentialed in submission grappling. He's got like all these sorts of medals and whatnot from like Poland, which is awesome. But if he can't land takedowns with consistency, it's tough for me, as we'll get into like Mackenzie Dern. It's tough for me to trust these fighters to be able to impose their grappling on a consistent 15-minute basis. And I think we're going to get a fight won or lost on the feet. We're like, maybe all of a sudden, Holtzman being 37, coming off his first knockout loss, maybe all of a sudden his reactions are starting to go. Maybe his shin is starting to go. I don't know. He's still generally shown to be durable. And it was just like such a crazy knockout, like with the Impa Buckley one that was touched on earlier in this card, in that I think it's going to be competitive on the feet, man, to be honest. I don't think either guy really blows the other out technically. I think pace-wise they're pretty similar as well. It's just Gamrot, I get him being a favorite, American top team guy, younger guy, higher upside. His career is arrow is pointing up, whereas Holtzman, you could say, is pointing down. So I side with him, but if I was an odds maker, I'd make it more minus 150, but I'm not going to take the dog shot on Holtzman. Even with that said, but where do you kind of see this fight taking place, and who do you think wins?
My initial thoughts were actually exactly that in terms of the line being too wide. I think it opened at minus 190, and actually right away people hit Scott Holtzman, and Gamrot got to minus 175. That's actually a more accurate line to me as well. I think I like Gamrot's ability to switch stances and fight from both stances. I think he is, very technical. I think he's all around very good fighter. He's got the cardio, he's got the, grappling, he's got, pretty good striking. And I think Kutateladze is actually a pretty good fighter. I mean, don't sleep on him, guys. But I mean, Scott Holtzman is a very seasoned vet. He is, I would say, he's kind of a perfect test for Gamrot, to see where his skills are. And to me, like, it's not too enticing to bet that line. I still lean his way, due to him being a younger guy, and I can see more improvements with him. And I think he potentially has more ways to win. because yeah, some of the shots that he took on Kutsaladze were pretty far away, but also some of the shots that I've seen from him, he has some decent entries as well and good timing sometimes as well. So I could see him maybe pulling away late in this fight, but I think the first round could be pretty close, and you could probably get a better line on Gamrot live, or if it's really 50-50 and Scott Holtzman is still the dog, maybe take him after round 1. But pre-fight, I will lean Gamrot by decision, but I'm not really interested in betting that line.
Awesome. Sounds good. We're on the same page. Jim Miller and Joe Solecki, a grappler's delight. I like Salecki in general. I think that his game, his elite submission grappling, means that his future, I think, is very bright. I also like his striking that he showcased in that fight against Hubbard. His boxing looked very crisp. He was throwing a nice 1-2, some kicks as well. So I think Salecki's got a bright future, to be honest. And 10 years younger here than Miller, also an elite submission grappler. How do you see this fight going down?
Yeah, actually, I used to kind of doubt Salecki, and then I watched a little bit more footage on the last fight against Austin Hubbard, and he looked really, really impressive. I mean, his ability to fight from both stances is awesome. I think he showed good vision to me as well. He was able to avoid strikes coming back his way, which is also impressive to me. I think the guy is super smart. I think he has good physicality for the weight class. I mean, there's a lot of things to like here. One thing I would say is that Jim Miller is very dangerous in round 1, and that's how he's won the last, 4 or 5 fights that he's won. And I think that potentially, it could be interesting in the first round. I don't really pick Jim Miller to win, but I think if we go past the first round, the possibility of Jim Miller winning drops significantly. I expect Salecki to have a huge cardio edge here, and I will pick him to win. I think he could actually even get a finish here. I wouldn't personally. I mean, if you guys want to play Salecki, I mean, maybe just play him straight if you guys like him. I personally don't really want to play minus 230, and he opened at minus 135. Whoever got that line, congratulations. But I do pick him to win, and I think he probably gets it done close to 70%, if not more, of the time. So there's probably maybe still value there. I just don't really play those kind of favorites myself.
Yeah, great point about Miller in round 1. That's when he's definitely the most dangerous. But as we've seen, throughout these recent years, he just tends to slow down as the fight progresses. That there's that famous quote that he said to his corner, I believe it was between rounds 2 and 3 against Trinaldo, saying that he's got nothing left. Clearly he's shown that he has some left in the meantime, but it kind of is more of a testament to his cardio, I suppose. Salecki, I could say right now, we don't know a ton about his cardio yet, even though he did go 3 rounds with Wyman where he just largely kind of just took him down and held him there for 15 minutes. But that said, I could still see something like that happening. Like, again, if Miller's fatigued and he's on his back in rounds 2 and 3, I would trust Salecki's very good submission grappling, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, to stay out of danger of any sort of guard submission for Miller, even though Miller's really dangerous there. And on the feet even too. Like Miller's a very capable boxer still at this point in time. But I would favor Salecki there. Just a bit sharper, more youthful fighter. That should help him win the aggregate of the exchanges here. I think he's can win the aggregate of the striking and the grappling, and that should be able to help him win. Yeah, I do see your point. Like he could finish Miller just based on how good he looked there last time out against Hubbard. I would think more like it would come from a knockout than a submission.
Yep.
But I would lean decision just because Miller's generally shown to be really tough to put away for 15 minutes, and I just kind of see Salecki winning that way.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird to me that he wasn't able to finish Matt Wyman. Like Matt Wyman looked. I mean, he got KO'd by a slam. 20 seconds into against Jordan Leavitt, and I think Jordan Leavitt will probably never ever KO anyone again. And before that, I mean, he got finished by who was that guy?
Pena. Luis Pena.
Yes. So it was kind of surprising that Solecki wasn't able to finish him, but so that's why I don't really necessarily. I can see decision or finish, so I'll just probably pass and just kind of enjoy the violence.
Yeah, likewise, man. Main card time. Mike Perry and Daniel Rodriguez, we're kicking it off here with a banger. I love this fight. I think this fight is going to be awesome for as long as it lasts. I edge Rodriguez here. I guess for me, and I bet Mike Perry against Tim Means, so I'm not afraid to admit that. I've overrated Perry's striking in the past. Like, yeah, he's got power, but he's mostly headhunter. Like, you could just tell when he's striking, he's just trying to load up and try and land a big KO shot. And we've seen him lose fights just by giving away rounds, by just the other guy being more active. You know, Tim Means was just touching him up with his jab on the outside, and he landed over 120 significant strikes for UFCstats.com. Alan Jouban, same thing, stuck on the outside, used the straight punches, touched them up. Max Griffin. I don't think Rodriguez is as technical of a striker as those guys, but he definitely throws more offense on the outside. He's going to be a little bit longer than Perry. The thing that makes me nervous for Rodriguez is he tends to leave his chin high when in the pocket. I think he's getting better. Like, he works with Joe Schilling and Donald Cerrone and all those guys at the ranch, but like, he's still right now not like a polished striker. And Perry, as we know, still has power. And I mean, it's fair to like question like Perry's like headspace, but like, it wasn't that long ago when Daniel Rodriguez was almost knocked out in the first round by Dwight Grant, and kudos to him for hanging on and getting the stoppage there in the same round. But that's what makes me nervous about Rodriguez in this matchup. The susceptible defense going up against another power puncher. If he doesn't get knocked out, I trust him to win the aggregate of the striking exchanges by just being more busy, being more active from the outside. He's going to be my pick to win just because I tend to side with the fighter with more passive victory. How do you see this one going down?
Yeah, I think Daniel Rodriguez initially, if you remember last year, he was scheduled to fight Kevin Holland, and that fight fell through. I was heavy on Kevin Holland in that fight. And my belief was that I don't really rate Rodriguez highly at all. He was getting picked apart by Tim Means in the first round until he landed a bomb right at the end. And I think from that point on, I don't think Tim Means was in the fight at all. I mean, he came back in the second. I mean, he came off the stool to fight in the second round, but then he was finished pretty quickly. But before that, I mean, he was getting picked apart. So I don't think the guy is high level. But what the issue with Perry is even if his win against Mickey Gall, man, that did not look like the Perry of old to me. I think Vicente Luque and Jeff Neal took the last brain cells out of him, and I don't know. I just don't see the same kind of Mike Perry that we had, during his initial run. And I mean, the amount of damage he took in those fights, is probably pain, caught up to him. And it's hard for me to pick him, but if he were to land a bomb and knock out D-Rod, it wouldn't be surprising because D-Rod is pretty hittable, and he's been hurt multiple times before. I mean, Dwight Grant, holy shit, like the comeback was great, but like, man, it was close to not, him being knocked out. So I'm going to still pick D-Rod. I think if it goes past the first round, I think he's going to land more shots and, probably win. But I don't want to bet this fight either, to be honest.
Yeah, to back up your point, I'm looking at UFCstats.com. He absorbed 6.12 significant strikes per minute. And then that fight against Gabe Green where he absorbed 127, it's just crazy, man. Like, yeah, kudos to the guy for being really tough, but like, man, that striking defense makes me nervous for a matchup like this. And whether or not Perry's the guy to exploit it, it just, like you said, it's tough for me to back him in general in terms of like a bet. Right. So for that reason. But the next fight, Nina Ansaroff and Mackenzie Dern. This is a really interesting one. Mackenzie is such an elite Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, but she lands takedowns at a rate of 5% in the UFC, and she's only landed one takedown. So I think she's improving. I definitely like that she's working with Jason Perillo. Like, I think that bodes well for her career, and she's also very young, so she's only going to get better. And her striking looked better than ever against Jandiroba last time out. And she's very aggressive, has power, but it's hard to watch tape and not favor Ansaroff on the feet. She's just more polished. She comes from a striking background. She's a third-degree black belt in Taekwondo, whereas, as we say, Dern's submission background. So I think Nina's going to have her number on the feet. She just fights at a higher pace. She's better defensively, better on the outside, more varied. It's just a matter of, like, does this layoff affect her? And I don't really have the answer for that. It's one of those things. It's hard for me to gauge like how it'll affect her. She's, I see her training. I looked at Instagram. It seems like having the child, her and Amanda, it really, fired him up even more. So I think that definitely bodes well, but it's still tough for me to quantify that sort of thing and predict exactly how Nina will look. I'm assuming we're going to get the best version of both ladies, potentially an improved version of Dern, where I'm still going to slightly favor, or not slightly, but I will favor Ansaroff on the feet, just better striker in a fight that I think will be won or lost standing. We know she's got great takedown defense. We saw the fight against Tatiana Suarez and even Claudia Gadelha. So I think Nina pulls through in probably decision scenario because Mackenzie's shown to be really tough. How about you?
Yeah, I think when I look at this fight, it kind of when you look at Nina line, I think it's either a gift of a line or a trap of the century. Because honestly, if this fight happens 2 years ago, and even if it's a current Mackenzie Dern versus the Nina of 2 years old, I think Nina beats that Dern. I think Nina is definitely much better on the feet. I think her movement, everything is better. But the layout does concern me. So for me, I'm going to wait up until pretty much the last minute to decide. I need to gauge Nina's energy on the scales, on the face-offs. I know I'm maybe in the minority the way I kind of approach the face-offs and weigh-ins. But when there is a question mark like this, I don't want to necessarily enter early. I'll just rather leave it late or even bet it live. I mean, there's going to be opportunities unless Dern submits her in the first round, which is, a possibility. I mean, she could, just drop down and get a leg or something, that could happen. Or, Mackenzie Dern also throws bombs. If she landed, a bomb on Nina, it wouldn't be surprising because, the layoff, the ring rust, everybody, it kind of affects everybody differently, right? You have someone like Dominic Cruz who can come back from 3 years out and look amazing against Takeya Mizugaki, right? And then you can have guys that come back and just look very shot. So I don't necessarily predict that Nina is going to look shot or anything. I just honestly don't have a good read in terms of her status right now. So I'll just leave this one late, but I do lean Nina's way, and I think she can win a decision here. And yeah, that's what I'm going to pick, but no bet for me here.
Yeah, very understandable, that approach in a case like this, because we just don't know. And Nina, when she's at her best, she's very underrated. I mean, she gave Tatiana Suarez the toughest test by far in Tatiana's whole UFC career. Like, Tatiana was looking dominant from bell to bell for 15 minutes, whereas Ansaroff, let's just be honest. Ansaroff, she won the third round, obviously. But, even when Tatiana took her down, Nina gave her a ton of resistance, and she did a great job of controlling posture from the elite wrestler and didn't really let Tatiana get any sort of damage on her. Like, yeah, she controlled her. That's what helped her win rounds 1 and 2. But I was very impressed with what I saw of Nina. And if she's near the level she was performing at pre-layoff, then yeah, I think she rolls here. I think that sort of intangible aspect of her taking the layoff is baked into the line. And that's why kind of where I understand where the odds maker's coming from. Next, Alvey and Marquez. Man, I watched the Marquez versus Pitolo fight last night again, and it was just like, man, I got a feel for every Pitolo better because it was just like the fight was going so well, and then he just made a mistake, got a little tired. Marquez hurt him in round 3, and he caught him with that with one of his submissions.
Yeah,
I have my concerns with Marquez in general. His defensive grappling is not good. We saw that in the last fight, controlled against the clinch or controlled against the cage in the clinch. Takedown defense could be much improved. He was mounted last time, but Pitolo. But we also know that Sam Alvey is not an offensive grappler, and Sam Alvey just notoriously backs himself into the fence and just sort of, he's technical and he has good counter shots and he's powerful, but like his just volume is so low. And my reason for why I understand Marquez being the favorite is younger, more athletic, more aggressive, throws more volume. But I wouldn't be shocked if we get another competitive split decision-y Sam Alvey type fight because he just slows the pace down of the fight. And he's really durable. So I wouldn't put it past Marquez to get a knockout just because he throws big shots. And we have seen Alvey hurt more and more recently. He was knocked out by Nogueira. He was hurt last fight against Jung more than once. So I'm not putting it past Marquez to get the knockout, but I think generally it goes to decision just because generally Alvey is shown to be durable. And he generally shows to slow the pace down. So as far as the prediction goes, I side with Marquez. How do you see this one going down?
Yeah, man. I was one of those Pitolo bettors, so that didn't feel great. But honestly, if this wasn't Sam Alvey, like anybody, if you give me plus 160 pretty much on 90% of guys against Marquez, I'll probably take that. I don't really think highly of the guy. But one thing is that he's game, man. He's going to be there till the last minute. He's not going to give up, unless you put him out cold, right? But Sam Alvey is, everybody kind of knows what Sam Alvey does. And, I don't understand why guys go to, close split decisions with him. I was one of the guys that parlayed Ryan Spann against Sam Alvey. And, man, he almost gave me a heart attack, in that fight. I mean, just running into the check right hook, and just showing come on, man, you know what the guy's doing. But it's kind of weird. Does maybe he hypnotizes guys when they are staring at him? I don't know. But I do lean Julian Marquez's way, and I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a stoppage. Let me actually look at the over under here, unless you have it pulled up. Okay, so under 2.5 is minus 130. Okay. Well, it actually opened at minus 150. Okay, well, not too interested in that. But I'm going to actually say that Marquez does get the job done inside the distance here. Let's say by second round TKO.
Fair. Yeah. Yeah, like you said, though, that is definitely – anytime he's going up against a grappler capable and that could do it for 15 minutes, I'm down to fade Marquez if he's a favorite, because I generally think he's overhyped, and I definitely do think that he could improve in the meantime. Training at Glory MMA with James Krause and company is just still something I would bet against before I kind of see improvements in that. Grateful Dude says Marquez has never won a decision. Yeah, and that's something that I do look at as well. In fighters, because if they're one of these fighters where they're 90% plus of their win equity is tied to a finish, and the finish doesn't come, it just begs the question. So yeah, totally get where you're coming from there, man. Next fight, I'm going to give this one a rip. Ali Oskab Khizriev. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but I tried. Versus Kyle Daukaus, much easier to pronounce. Fighter from Philadelphia versus fighter from Russia. Both contender series fighters. How do you see this one going down? Very competitive fight per the betting odds.
Yeah, I kind of liked in general Kyle Daukaus as a prospect before, but now I'm looking at it a little bit more, and I'm not sure if he was a bit overrated from that Brandon Allen performance. And I'm not so sure how good Brandon Allen is either, So, I mean, he's obviously Kyle Daukaus. He's definitely very competent on the ground. He a very opportunistic submission, grappler. He likes that Darce choke a lot. But on the feet, I mean, I have questions about the guy. I don't know. How does he react when he gets, hurt, and that kind of stuff. So I think that Alik Shab has the advantage on the feet. One thing that concerns me is that Alik Shab, if you look at his career, he actually at one point was a lightweight. And then he went to welterweight, and he has a lot of fighters at welterweight, and now he's a middleweight. Whereas Kyle Daukaus, I think on the amateur scene, he was even as high as heavyweight. So he came down. So it's kind of like the opposite. So I kind of want to see them on the scales to gauge the size here. But I do have a bet on this fight. I have under 2.5 at plus 145. I think there's going to be enough opportunities where I lean the Russian to get a finish. I think he can hurt him on the feet and put him away. But I wouldn't be surprised if Kyle Daukaus maybe finds a submission himself. But I will lean his way, and I'll say that he's going to get it done by TKO.
Yeah, I lean Khizriev too. I think he's just a better fighter, to be honest with you. When I was watching tape, I think he's a better striker. He's more technical. He fights better at range. He's got better defense. And even though Daukaus is going to be 6 inches taller, I believe, he's only got 2 inches of reach. Okay. And I just think Khizriev just fights better at range. So I think he's probably better there. And Daukaus, if you're a stats guy, 42% striking defense. That's not ideal, obviously. And I do think Khizriev is a better grappler. I think he's got the ability to chain wrestle in top position. I like how he's very positionally aware. He understands to if you throw up a guard sub or something at him, he'll avoid it and then just pass the legs and get the side control or something, which I like for this matchup. And like you said, in that Brandon Allen fight, I mean, Daukaus, he was put on his back. He was controlled. He had his guard passed. We even saw Brandon Allen hurt him twice in that fight. So I think Khizriev's got more finishing upside in this matchup, and I think he's got better round-winning equity. I just think that his better wrestling should mean that he takes Daukaus down. His very good submission defense and awareness in top position should mean avoid that. And who knows, maybe even get a ground and pound stoppage like you alluded to. I mean, he has really aggressive ground and pound to Khizriev, which I like. He's not one of these guys that's just like, I'm going to take you down and just kind of like stall top position. No, he's like, I'm going to pass your guard and just inflict all this ground and pound. It is crazy. And he's a really threatening submission grappler from the back. My only concern for him has just been his inactivity. Like, obviously, he just fought a few months ago on the Contender Series, but in terms of just like over the last few years, it's only been a select few bouts. So that's my only hesitation, but I still side with him just because I think he's a better talent here. And I do think, to your point, Daukaus is being a bit overrated based on a couple performances they had in the UFC where, like you touched on, we just don't really know how good those guys are. So my eyes tell me Khizriev's a better fighter. So I'm just going to trust my judgment and see how it goes. Yeah, go ahead.
One last thing I would add is Khizriev by TKO at plus 400 is very interesting to me. So don't be surprised if I take a shot on that, maybe after weigh-ins. I do kind of want to see that size, because like I said, one guy was able to fight at 155 at one point, and one guy was all the way to heavyweight. So I do want to see them sized up, but I think that line is very, very interesting too.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, because Daukaus did take a lot of ground and pound from Allen, and I just don't think Allen's near the ground and pound specialist that Khizriev is. So that is an interesting line for sure. Come in event time, Sadiq Yusuf and Arnold Allen. One kind of sneaky take that I just kind of came about when I was researching this fight is like, what like striker has Allen really faced in the UFC? Like, I'm looking at his record. It's Makwan Americani, Mads Burnell, Jordan Rinaldi, Gilbert Melendez, like Nick Lentz. Like, these are guys who are like, I like Allen in general. I think he's a talented fighter, but he's mostly winning fights by just keeping the fight upright and just kind of outpointing these dudes. Or in the case of Burnell, he was kind of losing that fight up until the ninja choke. This matchup, he in all likelihood doesn't have to worry about takedown defense, but Sadiq, like we saw against Andre Fili, he's really strong in top position. Like, he'll pass guard. He's like good technically there. So if Sadiq happens to get in top position, I think he can maybe keep Allen there, even though I think Allen's defensive grappling has come a ways. And the striking is interesting. Like, I think Allen's striking, while it's good, I think maybe it's a bit inflated based on who he's been fighting. Whereas Yusuf, he's been fighting guys that could strike really well, like Andre Fili, Gabriel Benitez, Shaman Moraes, Mike Davis, who I'm high on. Like, and he's going out there and landing volume and showing good technique and defense and throwing with power. So I agree with the odds in that Yusuf should be a slight favorite because I think he's better technically. I think he's been more tested against good strikers, and I think he's got more power. But I wouldn't be shocked to see Allen win. I mean, he's, again, a very capable striker himself, a young guy, solid athlete. So those are my kind of thoughts there. I lean decision, even though Yusuf has power, just because Allen's shown to be really durable. But how do you see this one going down?
Yeah, this is the matchup I'm most excited to break down. So my thoughts are this. So Sadiq, I think he loves to put the pressure and get in guys' face. So he likes to set that pace and pressure right away. And I think Allen is, I think he's going to be okay with that. I think he's going to be okay with accepting it and landing his shots moving backwards. I think Allen has a better footwork to me than Sadiq. I think Sadiq, I think he gets away with his physicality, honestly, man. I think his ability to kind of get in these dick swinging contests and just be the one that lands bigger shots and wins that way. I mean, it got him so far to this point. But man, like, his defense in the pocket is horrendous to me. I think that he does not move his head whatsoever. He's been hurt multiple times. He's been hurt from southpaw position multiple times. That's a big factor here. And I think Arnold Allen, I know you say that what are the strikers that Arnold Allen fought? And I think that's a very fair point. But I also think that Sadiq, I think Arnold Allen is the best boxer that Sadiq has fought. I think that Shaman Moraes, very good Thai, kicker. I think he's more of a kicker. Gabby Benitez, also more of a kicker. Andre Fili is pretty well-rounded. But I think that Arnold Allen's boxing is underrated. And I think he's going to be able to hurt Sadiq. I think the way that Sadiq, like, I think his confidence is so high that I don't think he's working on his defense. I really don't see much improvement. Like, even the fight that he's lost in the regional scene, and compared his like footwork and defense to now, I don't see much progression. And in that fight against Luis Gomez, I mean, before he got that slam kind of a KO, I mean, he got hurt by a right hand a minute before that. So it wasn't like it was just a fluke, TKO. So I've seen times and times again Sadiq making the same mistakes, and he gets away with it because of his physicality. And if he was to do that again, I wouldn't be too surprised. But I'm playing my odds. I took under 2.5 at plus 180. In my mind, I said to myself, if it's anything better than plus 150, I'm going to take that. Plus 180, I thought was really, really good value there. And it's still at plus 160, so I would still play that if I didn't have that one shot at plus 180. So, and I also have Arnold Allen by KO at plus 550. I think that it's kind of I think people just think of Allen as a decision kind of guy, and I think it's a bit of a stretch. I think Gilbert Melendez and Nick Lenz, man, those guys are really, really hard to put away. Like Gilbert Melendez, I think he only has one stoppage loss by a guillotine choke from Anthony Pettis. And, I mean, he's fought killers his whole career. So, and Nick Lenz, I mean, he loses by stoppage against Charles Oliveira. But besides that, I mean, he's really hard to put away. And Arnold Allen hurt him multiple times in that fight. But he just stays patient. That's what I like about him. So I think his patience is going to pay off in this fight versus Sadiq. He does like to get in the face, and I think he's gonna get hurt. And that's my prediction. I think that Arnold Allen's gonna put him away. And I also have a straight bet on him at plus 129 as well, because the odds shifted today. I was surprised to see that line, and I just took a shot as well. So that's kind of my breakdown there. Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I get your point. Like, I do think Sadiq, like some of these wins that he's had like he ended up getting his hand raised or whatever, but like they were very competitive up until a certain point, like you touched on. Like Gabriel Benitez, as you touched on, I mean, he hurt him, and the fight was like very back and forth, or you could argue Benitez was maybe even winning prior to the counter shot. And even like the Shaman Rice fight, it was like 1-1 going into round 3, and then Yusuf hurt him. So I definitely hear your argument on like he gets by on like his, you said physicality, his power, and I do think that even though like I'm siding with Yusuf, I do think that generally we get a very competitive fight here. So somebody would ask me, would you be shocked if Allen wins? No, I would be 0% surprised if Allen wins. I think it's a close to a coin flip ish type of fight. But I still slightly lean with Yusuf. So I totally hear where you and everybody else on Allen is coming from, because I mean, like you said, we can't really lose on this sort of matchup. This is a great matchup that features two prospects in a very deep weight class. So looking forward to that. And then we got their main event, 15 to round out the 15 fights on the card. Marvin Vettori and Kevin Holland. I mean, the blueprint's out on Holland. If it wasn't already prior to the fights, I remember on this very podcast, I believe MMA Lock of the Night was joining me that time. We both bet Brunson, and it was one of those spots you could capitalize on long term. Like if you see a fighter show consistent susceptibilities in one area. In the case of Holland, it was his takedown defense, but it was his betting line was inflated because people look at the end result and go, oh, he won those matchups. He beat Gerald Mearshart. He beat Darren Stewart. Oh, but the takedown offense was still an issue. And against an elite wrestler like Brunson, a very tested guy, I wanted to take the dog shot now. But now the market is like wise to it. Now Marvin, also a hyped fighter who could also grapple really well, is a massive favorite. So you're not going to get any hot takes from me. I think if Marvin wants to play around on the feet with Holland could maybe best him. I wouldn't be shocked. Holland's a very good striker. I've never thought less of his striking. He's also got 7 inches of reach on Vettori, so I wouldn't be shocked to see Holland maybe win the aggregate of the striking exchanges, despite the fact that I'm very high on Vettori's boxing. But we know Vettori's got a clear path to victory here. Take Holland down, and I wouldn't be shocked. I think he probably does submit Holland. I mean, he got submitted by Brandon Allen and Rafael Lovato. That was it as far as like a professional submission. But we saw Brunson had him in an arm triangle choke. We saw Mearshart have him in a guillotine choke. Like he puts himself in bad spots often. And Marvin is a very capable submission grappler. I think Marvin's going to be able to take this fight to the ground, pass the guard, and probably submit Holland with an arm triangle choke. And I think it's probably going to come early. So Marvin Vettori is going to be my pick. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to pick Vettori here because I think Vettori is he's a very solid fighter all around. I mean, obviously, if he gets in, he's a bit of a meathead, right? So I think that Holland could get inside of his head, with his talk, and maybe Vettori will decide, to just kind of stand and bang. And if that's the case, then I think the line is definitely a bit wide. But I think that at the end of the day, I think Vettori will go for takedowns. I think he will kind of wear out Kevin Holland. I mean, he just went 5 rounds. I mean, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. So I think Vettori, I'm honestly, at one point I was looking at plus 300 and I was like, man, that's a, very interesting line. But like, honestly, what is Kevin Holland's path to victory besides KO? Can he win a decision? I don't think so, man. He doesn't care about winning minutes or rounds at all, man. He just kind of he goes out there, he's having fun, then he gets, a nice finish, then he's all happy. But if he doesn't get a finish, then it goes to a split decision, or he might, get controlled and just, give up a choke like he did against Brandon Allen. So I'm going to say that from my standpoint, I would definitely not bet Vettori at minus 350, but I think that fight doesn't go the distance at minus 160 has value to me. I think that even something like fight won't start round 5 at minus 115. I mean, that's that's 4 rounds. I mean, minus 115, that's a good line. So I think that I might take a shot on one of those lines, but I still haven't yet. I want to watch the weigh-ins, the face-offs. I want to see how crazy we get, the interaction between the two and what kind of energy they're coming in with that. And but yeah, that's something that I will probably have a bet on later on.
Sounds good, man. Yeah. And that'll round out the card. I want to thank Peter for joining me. It was awesome talking fights with him, as always. I want to wish him and everybody else tuning in the best of luck on the events. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. One thing I do differently, people that aren't wondering, I'm actually going to be posting my bets exclusively from the mailing list of my website and betmma.tips. I just want to do it that way. I just want to have them in a select couple areas. It just gives me, it makes everything just a lot more efficient. So hopefully everybody can understand. And that'll conclude this breakdown for the card. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and have a nice day.